Today I was joined by Pittock, who plays over in America for Aquinas Men's Soccer. Really interesting podcast about why he moved over there and how his life is now over in America. But if quickly before the podcast starts, people could check out the Instagram Football Opinionated podcast. We're at about 57 followers now. So if people could check it out and we could try to get to 100 followers before the end of the month, then that would be great.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Pittock, who plays over in America for, is it Aquinas Men's Soccer?
Aquinas.
Aquinas, sorry, not got quite the
Right.
word there. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I thought we'd just start with talking a bit about how you started out playing football before we get on to you playing in America. So when did you sort of start? What's your earliest memory of playing football?
Yeah, sure. So I think I probably started when I was around 6 or 7, just playing Sunday League for my local team, which was Fishersgate Flyers at the time in Port Slade. And obviously, as I got older, I went and played out in Eastbourne for a bit, and then into under 18s and sort of first team football. I was playing at Worthing and Lewis.
Did you find it sort of when you first started out, you realised you were pretty good at football, or was it not till a bit later you realised you had quite a lot of ability?
I think when I was a lot younger, when I was like around 6 or 7, from that age to about 10, I don't think I sort of was great. Then I think I just sort of improved quite a lot over the next sort of couple of years, and that's when I sort of started to take it a bit more seriously.
Yeah, what sort of age do you think you started to sort of take it a bit more seriously rather than just sort of messing around, having a
I'd
laugh?
say probably when I was about 12 to 13.
Yeah, because for me, because obviously we went to the same primary school, secondary.
Yeah,
You were always one of the best players at school. Not to
yeah, thank
take
you.
up too much, but our school team, especially in secondary school, was pretty good. We had quite a few good players.
Yeah.
I'd say you were always one of the best players in the team. Did you feel like that, or do you think that was just sort of what other people saw?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think I did have obviously a bit of self-belief that I was one of the better ones. But like you said, I think obviously there was quite a few good players, especially in our secondary school team.
Yeah.
So I never felt like I was head and shoulders above the rest, because there were some very good players in the team.
Yeah, I think it was definitely clear you were going to play some sort of decent level of football. You mentioned you played under 18s. You started playing for Worthing and Lewis. Was that
Yeah,
a big step up? Because for me, I played Sunday League as well. Obviously, I wasn't as good as you, but I played Sunday League as well. But then when it got to under 18s, I stopped playing, because I think it's quite a jump from Sunday League to Worthing, Lewis, that sort of level. There's not really many teams to play for. When you get to that age, did you find that quite a big jump?
yeah. So I started playing in the under 18s when I was a pre-year, so I would have been 15, 16 at Worthing, and yeah, I mean it was quite a big jump, because obviously it's not usually sort of the best boys under the academy level, obviously in the whole county, that are playing for these teams. And I think not just sort of the level of football, but I'd say the competitiveness. I was quite surprised that people took it very seriously, sort of winning the league and the cups and whatnot.
Yeah, because you started at Worthing, didn't you? And then you moved on to Lewis. So did you, because you played for Worthing under 18s, did you feel like there wasn't that sort of path there to the Worthing first team, or was it just Lewis?
Yeah. So what happened is so when I was at Worthing under 18s, I'd sort of trained with the first team a few times and played in a few sort of friendlies and whatnot. But then I decided, obviously, at that point, that I wanted to look at coming to America. So I was sort of playing first team football with Lancing at that point.
Yeah.
While playing for the under 18s, and then I just decided for my last year of sort of youth football, I was going to go play with a few more of my friends at Lewis under 18s.
Yeah. have a bit more fun with it rather than
Yeah.
taking too seriously. You talk about the move to America. When did that sort of come about as a possibility? Like, when did you sort of think about doing that? Because I remember, I think at school you were thinking about it, weren't you? In like year 11, was it then, or was it earlier than that you thought about doing that?
Yeah, so I'd say about year 11, I sort of had heard of a few older people that maybe I'd played with before going out to the States, and then I wasn't too sure. It's just sort of like a thought, and then so I thought I'll go ahead and start doing my A levels anyway, just so as it's a backup. And then I think when I started like to really take it seriously was probably about halfway through my first year of A levels, and I decided that that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a few people that you knew had gone there. Is there anyone in particular you sort of had done quite well out there that you sort of wanted to replicate? Or
Yeah, so I think there's a lad that I played with at Worthing called Marshall. He was like 2 years older, and he went out there. He went out to Texas, and I spoke to him a bit about it, and he seemed to enjoy it. And then another couple lads that obviously went to Basvik, same college, that were in the year above, came out here as well.
yeah, and was that sort of obviously because did you fly out there before you moved there, or was it like you had some footage? How did it work?
Yeah, so what happened was I sort of signed up with an agency back here, and then they sort of talk you through the process, sort of come and record some of your games or gather your footage, and they send it out to coaches out in the States. And then from there, you sort of get in contact with these coaches, and then they offer you a scholarship or whatever, and then you decide where you want to go, really.
Oh, okay, so it was like you got footage from games for like Lancing and places like that, or was it like set up games by these agencies between?
Yeah, so it can be like a mixture. So my games at like so my games at Worthing and Lancing weren't really recorded at the time. There was a few at Lewis that were. So instead we had like agency games where all the boys that were sort of signed up to the agency would play, and that would be recorded, and then it would be sent out to the coaches.
Oh, okay, so was it like a lot of hours of footage or just a little bit that they had to sort of judge you on?
So mine was quite small, to be honest. Mine was probably based off about three or four games, which in comparison is not very much at all, because some people can send, obviously, if they got loads of footage of their games, they can make quite a big sort of highlight reel.
Yeah, that must have been quite difficult because obviously 4 games, you could have a couple bad games and then it's not
Yeah.
you as a player, or if it's like a different team you're not sort of used to playing with or something like that. Or do you find that quite hard to sort of show yourself off in a way?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was a little bit frustrating, because like you said, obviously when I play in the showcase games and that, everyone's sort of out for themselves anyway, because no one really knows each other, and we didn't play together. So yeah, no, it was a bit difficult. It would have been handy. I mean, it worked out in the end, but it would have been handy if like all my games from like under 18s football had been recorded or something like that. But yeah.
Was it quite quick after you sent in the footage that you got? Did you get quite a few offers, or was it sort of you knew where you wanted to go and applied to there?
Yeah, no. So I'd say once the sort of highlight reel was made and the like the agency had reached out to the coaches, I started to receive probably about 2-3 offers a week for the rest of that first year of college. So quite a lot, and it was from like all over the country, just different places and like various levels and types of colleges. And then in the end, I got the offer from Aquinas. It was an English coach. He'd just come in, sort of like starting the program from scratch a little bit. So I was interested in that, like the rebuilding phase. And a big thing for me was also sort of the location, being in the city. Obviously, coming from Brighton, like living in a city as it is like my whole life. So I didn't really want to be in the middle of nowhere. So that was a big thing.
Was there anywhere other than Aquinas that you sort of thought quite a lot about moving there, or was it sort of straightforward to go there? Was there anywhere else that you like seriously considered?
Yeah, so no, there was definitely some other colleges that I considered. There was like one in New York that I was really considering, and then another one in Indiana. But then sort of when it comes down to it, it's not just like the offer itself and the college. Obviously, it's like you've got to look at like the scholarship and the cost of the college and whatnot.
Yeah. So do you think that, I think that would have been New York, sort of, that's quite a big decision to turn that down. Was it sort of mainly based on the football or the college or the area? Was that?
Yeah, so it was the college. So like the college that I'm at now would be a lot better, I think, and also the scholarship was not anywhere near as good.
Yeah. How did you find the transition? Obviously, across 10 hours flight, I think. Is it longer to Michigan or?
Yeah, so the first like few times I came over, I'd travel to Atlanta and places like that, and then get a connecting flight. So I'd say altogether it was about 10 or 11 hours. Yeah, no, coming over here is not too bad. With the jet lag, it's normally when I go back, it's the problem.
Yeah, and was that sort of a bit hard thing to do, like leaving your family and all your mates to come out? And then I'm not sure if you knew anyone. Did you know anyone originally in Michigan, or was it completely fresh start?
Yeah, no, so I didn't know anyone out here. It was like completely new start. Yeah, I mean, I tried not to think about it really, like sort of about leaving my family, leaving my friends, because it was one of them things I just thought like if I didn't do it later in life, I'd definitely regret it.
Yeah,
Um,
is it something that you'd recommend to people to do it if they get the opportunity?
yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to do it. You've got to put your all into it, though. I don't think you can sort of, half foot it. I think you've got to be certain that it's what you want to do. Because I know that a few months after I got here, I was like very homesick, and I was definitely considering sort of coming home, and maybe just like going to university back home. But I sort of stuck it out, and I'm happy that I did.
Yeah, because it's quite a big jump, like moving from somewhere where you've lived all your life, like you have like quite a few mates, like obviously your family all live close, and then to move to one, a completely different country, and two, to not know anyone at all. I think it's quite like a brave thing to do, like a difficult thing to do. Um, did you think that? Did you have to think about it a lot, or was it just something you thought you've got to do to sort of progress your football and life in a way?
Yeah, no, I definitely sat on it for a while, but I think like once I sort of had it in my head that I wanted to go, it was sort of the main thing that I looked at. Like I didn't apply to any universities back home. I didn't write like a personal statement or anything like that, because I was sort of certain that I wanted to go. Like as you said there, like it wasn't sort of just for the football, but obviously for like my degree as well. It was a good step.
Did you find it easy to make friends over there, or is it difficult? Sort of, obviously they've got a different culture. Obviously, there's no language barrier, but
No, yeah.
getting to know.
Yeah, so like they was all like very welcoming, all the American lads. As I said, the coaches were English, which I think helps as well.
Yeah,
A bit more common ground. But no, so like last year when we came in, there was probably about sort of 12 new internationals, and then even more this year. So my roommate was a lad from Manchester as well, and there was like another English guy at the college at the time, and now there's like a few more. So I think because we was all sort of new together and from like all over the world, like it helped. Like it was easy to bond.
you're all sort of in the same position.
Yeah, exactly. We're all sort of in the same boat. So yeah.
What's the city been like moving to Michigan? Is it similar to Brighton, or is it very different? I'm not sure. I've never been, so.
Yeah, no, so I got quite lucky. So I'm in Grand Rapids, which is sort of the second biggest city in Michigan after Detroit. And it's really nice. It's sort of, I'd say it's a little bit smaller than Brighton, probably, in terms of like the actual city part, like downtown. But no, it is nice. It's got like a beach, like a big downtown and stuff. So it doesn't feel like too dissimilar from home. I'd say the main thing was sort of the weather difference.
Is it a lot hotter than down here?
Well, so in the summer it's really hot, probably like so about like 30 to 35 every day at least. But then in the winter, like I think like last week it was like -15.
Jesus. So does it snow much as well?
Oh yeah, yeah, and because of how cold it is, it's sort of, if it snows for like a couple of days, the snow will stay for like weeks.
Yeah, rather than here, there's like a little bit, then it just goes.
Yeah.
Did you find sort of like going out, like there was lots to do, like going I'm not sure if how much like nightlife or like food sort of things. Is it similar to Brighton in terms of there's quite a lot going on in Brighton, or is it a lot less?
Yeah, no, so I'd say it's pretty similar to Brighton, sort of a similar layout. But I think because at the time, obviously, when I first got here, especially, we was training twice a day for the first sort of month, and then after that is when like my classes started, and then obviously I was still training every day and playing games twice a week. So I didn't really have as much free time, sort of go out and explore. But no, like the social aspect isn't too dissimilar to like that of a university back home. But I'd say the one thing is that because the college is quite small that I'm at in terms of attendance, most, like a lot of the kids are athletes.
Oh, okay.
So I'd say that side's a little bit different. So maybe it's not quite as wild as like some of the universities back home.
Yeah, and how did you adjust to like people saying soccer rather than football? Because I don't.
Yeah, there was definitely a few sort of like words and phrases that I'd have to repeat myself, or even now today, some people just don't understand what I'm saying, and I can't figure it out because I feel like I'm clear, but they don't get it because of the accent or the different words that they use.
Are you still saying football, I hope, rather than soccer?
Yeah, I say football. Yeah.
Have you got much opportunity to like go anywhere else in America? Obviously it's quite a massive country. Have you been to any other places in America whilst you've been there?
Yeah, so I last semester, so it would have been last March actually, so the semester before, I went to Florida for what's like the Americans call like spring break. So it's kind of just like a week break, and that was really nice. But I obviously, because of COVID, I ended up having to come home for
Yeah.
summer, which I didn't really want to do. But this summer, I was going to go to Texas uh, and play for a team out in Texas just for a summer team. But I think I've decided I'm going to stay sort of where I am just for this summer, because I haven't spent a summer here yet and enjoy it here, and then maybe look elsewhere next summer. I also got to visit sort of Chicago a couple of times, which is nice because it's only like a 2 hour drive from where I am.
Oh, that's cool. You mentioned obviously having to come back. Have you been back much, or has COVID sort of stopped you coming back?
Yeah, no, so I came back probably about last April, and I was back for quite a long time. I was back until August. And I was sort of worried I wouldn't be able to get back out here because of all the rules and regulations of crossing the border. But I mean, that worked out okay. And then I came back for Christmas this year as well. Obviously last year, and then I got stuck because I tested positive a couple of days before I was supposed to fly out, so I
Oh,
couldn't fly.
yeah.
So I had to wait a few more weeks, but it wasn't the end of the world because I got a negative test eventually.
And then you got to fly back.
Yeah.
Was it weird sort of, so you've come back and then you can't see anyone? Was that a bit of a weird experience, that you've come back, all your mates you haven't seen for ages, and then you can't like go meet them all, you can't all meet up? Was that quite weird?
Yeah, it was. It was quite frustrating, I think, because I had to quarantine as well when I got back for 2 weeks, and that was the third time that I've had to quarantine in the last like sort of 8 months. So it was quite frustrating. I think when I first got back after the 2 weeks, there was about like a week, like a 2 week period, like a week period where we were sort of allowed to see our friends like outdoors, I think, and then the lockdown sort of hit after that. But yeah, no, it was. I mean, I was just bored. I didn't really have a lot to do.
Yeah. Did you, so then you went back after you got a negative test, so you went back in around January?
Yeah,
Yeah. And then has any of the games been impacted? Like, have you still been able to play as much, or has COVID meant you couldn't play for a while?
yeah. So usually our season will be the full semester. So it would have been like last semester, but so it got moved to this semester. I think we're only playing about 13 to 14 games, which obviously is frustrating. But I mean, it's better than nothing at this point. I mean, in terms of like the schedule, there have been a few sort of things, like not just because of COVID, but because this we had to change this semester. Like we can't always play outdoors. Like we haven't been able to train outdoors yet
because of this.
because it's the snow and it's been too cold. But starting from next week, I think we're gonna go outdoors. So it's been sort of hard to get back in the flow of things when you're training sort of indoors. Like we have a nice indoor facility, but it's not really game realistic because it's not a big pitch or anything.
Yeah, the facility is quite good there. Obviously, in like Brighton, I wouldn't say they're the greatest. Like most people in a park often get called off for like waterlogged or just awful pitches. Are the facilities there a lot better?
Yeah, so sort of every pitch is an AstroTurf, which I mean I would prefer grass, but like you said, like you don't really get any games called off. And I think the nice thing that I noticed anyway is like you said, sort of growing up like in England, especially in Brighton, like if you want to go have a kick about with your mates, like unless you want to pay or sort of hop a fence, you've only got sort of like the parks and stuff like that. Whereas here you can go turn up to sort of any like high school, college, like turf you want and go on and play.
Yeah, that's good. You mentioned the training's been quite a lot. Has that been impacted at all? You mentioned obviously when you came back, was that difficult not training for ages and then coming back and being?
Yeah, definitely. I think because it's frustrating because obviously I feel like I got to a certain level of fitness where I was sort of ready for the season. Then I came back and obviously, like I said, I had COVID as well, so I couldn't really sort of train during that period, and it sort of set me back a little bit. And I definitely noticed that in my first game last week that I was sort of blowing after like 35 minutes or what, and like, normally I wouldn't be.
Yeah. And how have you found like the intensity of their games? Is it similar to sort of like Lewis, Worthing, or is it a lot higher?
So I'd say in terms of actual intensity, I'd say the intensity is probably a bit higher, but I think that comes with a lot of Americans being very fit, and that's like a lot of the sort of college, like what's drilled into you at college soccer is about being really fit.
Yeah.
And like sort of drilling it into them, and then, but like where I play in my league, there's a lot of internationals. So I'd say that in terms of the quality, I think it can just vary like massively, depending on who you're playing against.
Yeah. Do you think so? Obviously, you said the intensity is a little bit higher. What about the quality? Is it like a big step up from sort of under 18 academy football of like Lewis and Worthing, or is it a similar sort of level?
Yeah, so I'd say in terms of sort of technical ability and game knowledge, I'd say that actually back home, a lot of the players that I played against were superior to sort of some of the players that I play against out here. But then on the flip side is when we play against these colleges that also have a high international recruiting class from sort of all over the world, then them players are very good, very good. So yeah, it can vary quite a lot.
Is there any sort of players in particular you've sort of been like really impressed by, or that you've sort of thought like you've thought they're really good and could maybe go up a level at all?
Yeah, no, I definitely think there's a few even on my team right now that will be that can go up a level, and definitely some players I've played against. I remember playing against a Spanish lad, for example, last season, and he was like one of the best players that I've seen for a while. Anyway, in that game, he was very, very good. And I mean, there's opportunities out here to sort of move up the levels, but being an international, I don't know whether like you want to go back home or stay out here. So, but yeah, no, I definitely think there's room for some people to move up the levels.
Do you get to travel much to games, or is it do you play like mostly in Michigan, or do you play people across states, or is it all the teams from Michigan?
Yeah, so in our league, sort of we play teams in Indiana, which is a few hours away, Ohio, which is sort of similar, a few hours away, Illinois, played against a couple of teams from there. I'd say the furthest that we've had to travel was probably about 8 hours last year, and then sort of at the end of the season, if you make the playoffs, then you get to travel a bit further to play other teams.
Okay, so it's not so mostly is within Michigan. You mentioned playoffs there. Is that so? Is it like top 4 teams get into the playoffs or top 2? How does it work?
Yeah, so basically what happens is it's so at the end of the season, the top 6 teams in the league will then sort of go into like a mini like knockout tournament. So it's like first will play 6th, so it's like seeded, and then if you win that, you go to nationals, which is like usually in like Florida or somewhere like that, and then it's all the teams from the leagues that won theirs that will go get together and play against each other.
Whereabouts in the league are you at the moment? Have you played many games, or is it?
So we played. So it's separated into non-conference and conference games. So the conference would be like the league, and then non-conference is like you can play sort of like any team really, and it doesn't. Whilst it doesn't go towards your league standing, it goes towards your overall record, which can like affect your ranking in the country. So we played one non-conference and one conference game, and we've won them both so far.
Okay, so and how have you found the level there? Do you still play in the same sort of position like at school? You're a right winger. Do you play there, or do you play different?
Yeah, so we actually beat a difficult team last Friday. We ended up winning on golden goal, because that's the thing they do over here as well. If you're drawing, by the end of the game, you go into overtime or added time, and then obviously the first person to score gets the win. Yeah, so depended on the formation. I think last year I played a bit as a right wing back, but this year I've played as a right winger to start with. Yeah.
Okay, and Bud, our friend, he told me a stat. I'm not sure. I just wanted to see if it was true. He said you had like the most running stats out of anyone in your league or something like that. I can't remember the exact stat.
Yeah, so I think it was a game. It was my first game actually. I think it was like my first game ever actually last year. And sort of where we wear the heart rate monitors. I think I ran 17k in one game, because it went to overtime as well. And at the time, I didn't even realise that the games went into overtime. So at the like full time whistle, it was like 1-1 or whatever. I was like dead on the floor, and then it was like, get up, like you got to play again.
Yeah. Is that something they're quite big on, like stats and sort of measuring your running and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so that's a massive thing over here. Not just the running itself, but like sort of stats in the game. So like everything's like based upon like goals, assists, clean sheets. And then like the running is a big part. Sort of like you're required to get like a certain amount on like the beep test, for example, to play and stuff like that. And the coach expects like a certain level. And like we have to wear our heart rate monitor for every sort of training session and game, and it's looked at after and sort of analysed.
Do you like that, or do you think that's sort of too focused on stats, or do you prefer that way to sort of motivate you to play to a high level? Or?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the like the running, I don't really mind that, because I guess it's a good way for coaches to make sure sort of who's putting a shift in and sort of who needs a rest, how to monitor it. But in terms of the sort of the main focus being looking at stats, I think it can definitely be frustrating in terms of recognition, because obviously, like we see so many times with professional football players, you can't always judge someone by the stats that they get, like whether it be goals or assists. Like someone could play outstanding and not get a goal or assist, and then they don't really get any recognition for it.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree that there's players who'll have an amazing game, but their stats might not show it. And then that must be quite frustrating when your coaches maybe overlook that when they're looking at stats. So you mentioned obviously you're, as well as playing football, studying. Is there like is it a number of subjects you're studying, or is it like something in particular?
Yeah, so the system works a lot different over here. It's so my degree is business and economics, and the degrees over here are 4 years, the bachelor's degrees. But the way the American system works is a little bit strange. So like you have to do like general education classes as well. So I'll do typically it's about 15 credits a semester. So each class is usually about 3 credits per class. So I'll take, say, 5 classes a semester.
Yeah.
But like, for example, at my college, I'm required to do at least 2 semesters of like a language class. And then like a theology, like a writing class. So like I've been doing like Spanish this semester and last semester. Which, yeah, I mean, I also find that a bit frustrating because like my degree is business and economics. So I don't feel like I'm giving it my all when I'm learning sort of Spanish and stuff. But once you get them out of the way, it's more sort of focused on your degree classes.
Have you found that quite different to like college? Because obviously at college, you study what you want to study, like different to school. Obviously, you'll have to do it. We had to do a language at school. Have you found that sort of annoying going back to like having to do a language rather than at college, sort of doing like 3 classes that you want to do?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It does feel a bit more like sort of secondary school in a way that you've got all these classes. But I mean, I guess the nice thing is like, because the classes finish at the end of each semester, so if there's a class that you don't like or you may be struggling with a little bit, if you just sort of get through it for the semester, then you don't have to worry about it again.
Yeah.
So it's done, and then you pick up a whole new set of classes.
Do you think you've sort of learned a lot, as in more football or life, moving to America, sort of having to live? Obviously, you're in the halls, but living on your own, like doing different type of education. Has that been more like you've learned more from that from the football?
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's a bit of both. I think that obviously, like you said, sort of moving away by myself and becoming a bit more independent, like I've sort of grown up quite a lot because I've sort of had to, really. And then also, yeah, with the football, like, I'm learning a lot. I've got some good coaches as well, and the players around me that are good. Um, and like you mentioned earlier, it's a different, like, even the football culture is a bit different, the way people play. So it's good to see sort of the flip side and adjust to that as well, sort of add to my game.
Yeah. Have you thought about coming when you finish after 4 years, coming back, or do you think you'd want to stay out there? Have you thought about that yet, or not really?
Yeah, so I have. I mean, I personally would sort of like to stay out here. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity out here in terms of job and playing wise, even. But obviously, being an international student, that's quite hard to get a visa after and stuff like that. So I mean, if I had to come back, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I'd probably end up doing like a master's when I came back, just so that my degree is sort of transferable. That
Yeah.
way, and it's more recognisable. Because obviously, if I came home with an American degree and sort of tried to get a job, I think a few companies wouldn't really accept it, or would be more willing to take someone else on. And then I'd just sort of, yeah, look for a club back home again.
Do you think football's sort of something you want to try and still pursue like professionally, or is it more as sort of like on the side of doing obviously something to do with business and economics or a different job, or do you think you want to go into football professionally?
Yeah, so I think it's always been in my mind that I need to get my degree, and I need to sort of get myself set up for when the time comes that I'll need to get a job. But at the same time, obviously, I'm still going to work as hard as I can with the college football and the sort of the summer leagues and the other teams around us to sort of, if I get that chance and I can take it, then yeah, I'll go for it. I mean, there's a couple teams sort of around here. I know there's one in Detroit that's classed as professional football team. I think there's quite a few opportunities.
Do you think there's sort of a path into like the MLS, or is there sort of do they look around at colleges like yours for people who are doing well, or is it sort of different? How does it work? Is it, because I know it's not like academy football here. I don't think the MLS teams have academies, do they? They sort of pick up from colleges.
Yeah, so I think a few of them have started to sort of set up academies, but yeah, so the main thing that they'll do, they wouldn't really necessarily look at sort of a college like mine. They look at the bigger colleges, sort of like the best of the best, and then they do like a draft pick. And I'm not too sure how many lads it is they take on each year, but they take on a certain amount, but obviously them lads that do get taken on are very, very good players. I know there's a few from sort of like England that had come over here and played and been taken on, like for example Jack Harrison at Leeds. He was at a college and then got taken on, I think, New York.
Yeah, I think he was at New York.
Yeah. And there was a lad from England that played for Michigan last year that got drafted as well, I noticed. But yeah, no, I mean, I think the more sort of not the easier route, but like a different route is like sort of playing for a team in the summer and then working your way up from there, sort of getting spotted or whatever.
Yeah, do you think that's sort of a realistic dream getting to like the MLS, or is that sort of you hope it happens, or do you think that would be possible?
I think that sort of in the position that I'm at, I wouldn't say sort of like realistic. No, I think I'm just gonna like try my best to go as far as I can, play a level as high as I can. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say realistic because I think especially over recent years it's become even more competitive over here with all the international lads. I mean, a lot of lads will come out of academies and come straight over to here and then and play for the sort of the bigger colleges and get looked at and stuff.
Yeah, do you think, say, if you did have to come back to England, you'd sort of want to play at a similar sort of level, like clubs like Worthing and stuff, or do you think you'd be able to, from the experience, play higher than that, or where do you think you'd sort of stand in terms of football?
Yeah, no, it's strange. Obviously, I think a level like that would be good. Obviously, because I haven't been back and haven't been back and played or whatever in a couple of years. And that, when I do eventually go back, it would have been at least 4 or 5 years. It will be interesting to see sort of how I've adapted and how I've changed to the game back home. But yeah, no, like I said, I just sort of try and see where I can go from it and see as far as I can go.
Yeah, so for the next 4 years, will you be for the 4 years staying at the university, or do you think you'll sort of does it work like obviously in England, like if you go to uni, you'll probably stay there for 1 or 2 years, then you might get a house share or something. How does it work sort of in America?
Yeah, so I stayed on in the dorms last year, stayed in the dorms again this year. Next year I'll probably get like an on-campus apartment. And then I can move off campus if I want, but obviously I don't have a car or anything out here, so it's not really as practical. I think I'd rather stay sort of on campus.
Yeah, is that something are you able to drive there, or do you have to go through like?
You have to go through like a sort of conversion course, which I think I'm going to do in the summer. I'm going to sort of get mine, because I never even ended up getting mine back home actually.
Because you're moving there, I guess.
Because I was moving, yeah, and we was doing our A levels at the time. So I think I'm going to do my sort of lessons and whatnot this summer and get an American license. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Have you tried any other sports in America? Obviously, over there's like baseball's quite big, basketball. Have you tried any other sports at all?
Yeah, no. So I wouldn't say like I've like really played like any other sports much. So I played a bit of basketball just as a laugh, but I've definitely sort of watched other sports that maybe I hadn't watched before, like basketball and like hockey, obviously American football. Before, obviously pre-COVID, I'd go to quite a few of the college basketball games. They were good to watch.
Do you go to watch? I'm not sure. Is there an MLS team in Michigan or near Michigan that you get to go and watch at all?
No, there's actually not. I don't think there's an MLS team in Michigan. I think the nearest one is in Chicago.
Okay.
But as I said, that's only about 2 and a bit hours away. So hopefully, when things open back up, I'll be able to get over and watch a game.
Yeah, and how have you found sort of like the banter, that sort of thing, in the changing in England? Everyone has a laugh and a bit of banter. Do you find that it's similar there, or is everyone quite like serious in how they take their football and stuff?
Yeah, so I'd say sort of it took me like a little while to adjust. So like especially for me and my roommate last year, like a lot of the Americans would say like, oh, like sort of your English banter is quite a lot more savage.
Yeah.
than like the American banter and stuff. But no, I mean, it's been fine. Like, I haven't felt sort of like awkward or like everyone's too serious or anything. Because I think the thing that helped as well is like there were a lot of internationals sort of from Europe even. Obviously, they're quite similar to us. So, and the Canadians, I'd say, are quite similar to us, even more so than the Americans. But yeah, no, I think I've adjusted to it. I think as well they sort of obviously they pick up off of us, the Americans that I've been around as well. So
Yeah.
no, it hasn't been too bad.
And I saw a picture on your Instagram the other day with you and your team had your team picture and you all had masks on. Was that a bit of a weird thing, like going onto the pitch with a mask on?
Yeah, it is. I think not 100% sure, but we might be the only state at the moment that are required to wear masks when we play, and that is bad, especially indoors, because as you can imagine, it gets a bit stuffy or whatever, hard to breathe. But yeah, no, it is weird. It's a strange feeling.
The game, so when you play indoors, is it do you find that weird? Like, obviously, I don't think we've ever played, from what I've played, or I'm not sure if you would have ever played indoors in England. I don't think there's any real pitches other than like when you're much younger. Is that quite a weird experience playing football indoors, like competitively?
Yeah, so the pitch that we played on sort of last week and the week before, the indoor pitch is actually massive, probably bigger than our outdoor pitch. So I think that kind of helped because I mean I'm not exactly one that likes playing on like small pitches anyway, especially as a winger. I'd
Yeah.
rather play on like a bigger pitch. So it wasn't too bad because of the size of the pitch, but I mean yeah, it does still feel a little bit odd sort of playing indoors. It's a bit harder to breathe. I feel like you get a bit tired like quicker and whatnot.
Yeah, we've got a few questions, a few that I won't ask because they're mostly just about why you're so good looking. But we did get a few serious ones, so just get them up now. So someone just put, obviously we touched on it before, how was your transition from UK to US living, like your day to day? Was it a lot different or did you sort of settle in?
Yeah, so I think it definitely was a lot different, but I think what sort of helped is because it was so sort of 100 miles an hour as soon as I got here with training twice a day, you know, and then classes, that it sort of helped in a way because I didn't have as much time to sort of think about it really, you know, because it sort of go. So I sort of just got on with it. But yeah, no, it definitely took a few months before I was really comfortable where I was.
Cool. And then someone else said, why did you choose to go to America?
So yeah, like I said earlier, I knew a few people, older people that had done it, and I just thought later on in life, if I look back and I knew I had the opportunity and I didn't take it, it would be something that I regretted. And it's just, I guess it's a way to continue with like my education and playing sport at the same time. So it was a no-brainer really.
And someone else said, life in the USA. I know we've obviously spoke about a lot, but sort of like when you do get time off, is it sort of do you have lots to do, or do you mostly spend your time at the college, or are you quite busy with? Is your social life as busy as it would be here?
Yeah, no. So honestly, I'd say it's pretty similar to being back home. Sort of, I know going out is you got to be 21 here, but I know at the weekend, like especially like pre-COVID, like there's just sort of as many parties and things to do as back home, and in sort of in the town, there's a lot to do. Just like whether it's like I don't know, like going to play golf, like mini golf, going to the cinema, like going to the beach, going to restaurants and all that stuff.
Is that frustrating not being able to drink out? Like obviously here it's 18, and then going there you're not 21, so you can't drink. Is that quite annoying, or do you not really mind?
Yeah, I mean it's sort of weird, obviously, because by the time I got out here, I was well, I guess I was 18 at the time, but obviously in England, it feels like we sort of start a lot earlier to sort of like drink and enjoy ourselves. Whereas sort of you get here, like an 18-year-old here is not the same as an 18-year-old back home, or like a 16-year-old. Like it feels like a lot different. Yeah, no, it was weird, but obviously, like you said, like we still enjoy ourselves on the weekend. Like we don't have to sort of go out, and whatnot.
Someone else said, what's your best moment whilst being out in the US?
Um, that's tough. I think it's just sort of all the times that I've been able to play really and get the season going. I think after sort of what happened with COVID, it made you realise sort of like, especially me, like how much I missed it, sort of being out on the pitch. And I think, for example, on Friday, winning that game sort of in added time with the golden goal, that was really good as a team. Sort of a good moment for us against a difficult team to kick on. So yeah, it's hard to sort of pinpoint one particular moment. Because there's been quite a few.
And someone said, do you still get to watch all the Premier League games? Like, do you keep up? Obviously, unfortunately, you're a big Arsenal fan. Do you get to watch all the games still, or not really?
Yeah, so obviously they're on. Like this morning, it was on at 7:00. So I try my best to sort of to get it on. I do manage to watch quite a lot of them actually, because they're mostly on just sort of cable TV out here.
Yeah.
Like they don't always require like a subscription, like a Sky Sports or anything like that. So it's kind of easier to watch. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, like for example, this morning my alarm didn't go off, so I didn't get to see the game.
You missed your actual wins this season.
Yeah, I know.
And then someone just said, I think they're taking a mick, but they said, "How long are your legs?"
How long am I? I know who said that. That'll be Liam on my team.
Yeah, it was. He was taking the mick. And I think. Then there was other ones just like whether you recommend it. Obviously, you said before you would. If you could go back, would you still come out to America? Or would you have gone to the same college, or would you have done anything differently?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely would recommend it. I think the main thing you need, like I said, one is you've got to be sort of all for it. You've got to put your all into it. You can't sort of half step it. I think secondly, you need to definitely sort of do a lot of research on the college, like the area that you're going to be in, sort of your degree. Because I know a few lads that sort of came out, and for example, they were sort of in the middle of nowhere, like a tiny college. With like the nearest shop was like 45 minutes away, like an hour away, and then they sort of ended up going home because there was nothing to do. So that, I mean, a big thing for me was the location. There was a lot to do. So yeah, I think you just got to make sure you research it and look into it. But I definitely recommend it to everyone.
Okay, cool. I think that's a good point to round it off. Thank you very much for coming on and answering all our questions and sort of giving us an insight into your life in America.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Thanks for having me.